And now for Goldplat. The South Africa-based gold producer has international gold recovery operations in South Africa and Ghana and has just announced an operational update for Q1. The core business has been profitable over the last 11 quarters, and Goldplat has steadily been investing for growth. The shares were trading at an all-time high yesterday with a market cap around £20 million, and GDP is focused on developing a gold tailings revenue stream in South Africa, as well as growing the business organically in Ghana. And tonight, CEO Werner Klingenberg is speaking to us from Johannesburg, and he's going to explain why he thinks Goldplat should be seen as a mining services group rather than a gold recovery business. Over to you, Werner.
Thank you, Donald. And it's nice to join you tonight. If I'm correct, I understand there's a few new individuals in the audience, and I'm looking forward to share a bit of the Goldplat story with you. As you can see on the slide, Goldplat, we focus on recovering value from previously mined resources, and it's a bit more complex, I guess, than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us through a bit of simple detail in terms of what Goldplat does. Trying to keep it short because I'm sure there's a lot of questions at the end, and I'll rather prefer to address those. So if we look at Goldplat PLC, we've been listed on the London Stock Exchange since 2006. We're a cash generative business, as I've indicated, focused on recovering value from previously mined material, specifically in South Africa and West Africa, but we also source wider into Africa as well as South America. And the focus is really on gold and PGMs. We've started the business focusing on recovering gold on behalf of the mining industry, current mining industry as well as historical. And I'll give you a bit more detail in terms of the type of material we process on behalf of the mining industry. We are quite a niche recovery business. We've obviously built up quite an experienced management team over the last 20 years, specifically focusing on providing solutions to the gold mining industry that generates different types of products. If we then step back, before I talk about our assets that we've got on book, that we plan to process in the future, I just want to move on to a little bit more of detail. So Goldplat Recovery basically have services, as I said, blue chip gold producers in South Africa as well as in West Africa. We've got specific plant that has the ability to recover gold from the different types of material being generated by the mining industry. That includes fine carbons, mill liners, wood chips, everything that gets impregnated or becomes gold bearing during the mining processes, that's being generated on small quantities that doesn't justify the mining industry to invest capital to recover the gold from that material. And that's in essence what we've developed over the last 20 years. Different types of plants being able to recover this gold, to return value back to the mining industry, as well as retain some of that for ourselves. That actually provides a unique take on Goldplat in the sense that we are a services company, but we do have gold and PGMs exposure at the end of the day in terms of when the price fluctuates. And I see it actually increased slightly today, which is quite positive. As indicated, we also look at historical mining sites. I mean, in South Africa, gold has been mined for more than 150 years. There's a lot of areas that's currently owned either by municipalities, landowners, that's been contaminated by the mining industry in the past. We provide services whereby we clean those up and process it through our plant to recover the last bit of value. The processes we use is not necessarily unique, except for the fact we've got different types of processes on our plants in South Africa and in Ghana. giving us the flexibility to handle a lot of different types of material being generated. So in the end, what do we produce? We produce gold doré, silver doré, as well as other gravity concentrates and concentrates that contains gold or PGMs material. So stepping back to who and what Goldplat is, just a bit of key data. The share price has been moving quite nicely, and I'm sure the shareholders is excited to see that at last, increasing about 25% over the last 10 days. The share price is now at around 12p with a market cap of £20 million. We had some board changes in the last 3 months with our previous chairman, Matthew Robinson, stepping down. But we were lucky to have him replaced by Gerard Green, who has been part of the team on an executive and non-executive basis for the last 7 or 8 years. We were also joined by Gerard Kemp, that's got extensive experience in the mining industry, and both Gerard and Gerard is quite actively still involved in the mining industry, and I'm sure they're going to contribute quite a lot in terms of the growth of Goldplat going forward. We've got one major shareholder in Martin Oy, owning 28.85%. He's also a non-executive director on the board. So if we then look at Goldplat and go back to the overview again, as indicated, we aim and we have been providing a service for the mining industry for more than 30 years, even before we've been listed. And as we'll look at, when we look at the numbers a bit later, we've been doing so profitably for the last 3 to 4 years. And we, as I think what's important for me to understand from the shareholders' perspective is that as we're a services company, it's all about maintaining relationships, maintaining the services. And as the mining industry in South Africa, and specifically West Africa, where there's a lot of investment going in, so Goldplat can also grow, increase, as well as remain stable in terms of the operating profits we do generate. Apart from that, we also have quite a few nice projects. The most important one is obviously our tailings facility in South Africa, which we've built up in processing material for the last 20 years, which is containing around 82,000 ounces of gold per JORC compliant resource we did on that property back in 2016. Since then, we've added material to that tailings facility, and we're currently working hard towards finalizing the solutions we've developed to process that material. If I talk about the solution, the first step is that we need to move off that facility so that we've got the ability to reprocess it. Secondly, we will need to establish a pipeline, as we've announced this morning, to DRD Gold's facilities. And once we get the approval for that and we complete the construction, we've got the ability then to actually process that material through a plant situated on their site. The terms and conditions around that still needs to be finalized, but we're quite excited about our relationship, which is quite key to Goldplat, with DRD Gold, and this really provides us with an adequate solution to process this material in the future. Something I forgot to mention of the JORC compliant resource is that it's running at a grade of 1.78 grams a ton. So it's basically a resource above ground, close to 1.8 grams a ton. And we currently estimate the recoveries around 20%, but that will vary. And we're still looking at ways of increasing that. And once we've got more specific terms, we'll be able to provide a bit more detail to the market in terms of what we can expect from that in the future. At the bottom, just to note, we still have around about £500,000 worth of investment in Carical Gold PLC. which is an African-focused gold miner, and we still value this investment that was created when we ventured our asset, Kilimapesa, into Caracal Gold nearly a year ago. So if we then move on, I'm not going to talk too much on the slide. Obviously, it remains important for us to be seen as, not seen as, but I mean, it's important to have being established as a trustworthy partner in the gold industry. I keep on telling our staff that's the only thing we've got. It's important that we handle all the material we get with care. And as a result, we try and follow the responsible gold guidance set out by the LBMA and get audited according to that on a regular basis to make sure our sourcing is certified. We're also proud of the fact that our services actually provide a solution for some of the byproducts and waste that has been created by the mining industry, and providing a way of not just removing it from their site, but also to extract more value out of it, to make sure that all material mined, we recover as much as possible metal from it, and in the end, reducing the need to mine more and more. So if we then look a bit more at the numbers, as indicated, the business as a whole has been, or the recovery business as a whole, has been reducing operational profits since 2018 based on various gold prices. We are, if we look at these numbers, you can see that from operating profit before finance costs, we've been generating on average between 3 to 4 million, even higher operating numbers. That obviously excludes listing costs, finance costs, and taxes. I've included the numbers up until 6 months, December 2021. That operating profit before finance cost for the 12 months, as indicated to the market, was closer to 7.8 million pounds. So the business has been growing, our market share has been increasing, and obviously we've been benefiting on a good gold price over the last couple of years. As indicated, we've got two gold recovery businesses, one situated in South Africa and one in Ghana. The two distinct differences between the two is in South Africa, we do process surface source material through carbon and leach circuits, whereby in Ghana, we only focused on actually providing solutions for current, for the current mining industry. So we don't do any carbon and leach. Our focus is merely on products that's being produced on a daily basis. We have established a lot of relationships in West Africa, and the key there remains for us to try and open up more and more of West Africa, and I'll talk a little bit about South America as well now. So before we look at that, just in terms of Goldplat recovery, the key for us remains on sustainability of sourcing material at our recovery operation. Obviously, as much as we're a servicing entity, we're also a processing entity, and for that we need sources to do so. Apart from our relationship with the mining industry, I'm glad or excited more about the fact that we've been able to increase our low-grade surface source material above 5 years in terms of resource supply through arrangements made with DRD Gold. That really gives us a stable footing in terms of our operations in South Africa, and we're quite excited about increasing our market share in South Africa in terms of byproducts from current mining industry. We're continuously focusing also on diversifying in South Africa into PGMs. South Africa has got some of the largest resources in the world of PGMs, and we have been investing more and more in terms of material to process, as well as into plant to process this. Our flotation plant has been finalized towards the end of June this year. We had some teething problems, but currently the plant is starting to give us good results in terms of processing, and that really gives us a lot of flexibility, not just to process PGM material, but also to process different types of gold material through this flotation circuit. In terms of monetizing a tailings storage facility in South Africa, I've already discussed the advances we've made there in terms of the pipelines and with DRD Gold. Around, obviously, if we want to process that facility, we need to construct a new tailings facility. And I don't think the market really appreciates that the importance of actually getting approval to construct a new tailings facility. We've got the approval now. We've started to construct that facility. We believe it will take roughly around 6 months to complete. And once we move off the current facility, obviously, the plans can begin to install a pipeline and work on plans to reprocess the old facility, still depending on getting approval for that construction of pipeline from Water Affairs. If we then look at Gold Recovery Ghana, I'm quite happy that the plant has got the capacity to do a lot more, just because of the nature of the material we process. We've built, as I've indicated, good, strong relationships in West Africa. And in West Africa, as much as being engaged with the mining groups and staff on the mine, it's also important to build relationships with government to make sure they're comfortable with the export processes and the processes we put in place, specifically transparency on processing material in Ghana to allow for export of those material to our premises for processing. We continue to look at other options in West Africa. We've been quite successful in processing some material generated by artisanal miners, and we're still engaging with government to find ways of providing that solution to industry or cleaning up tails left behind by small-scale miners. In South America, we have been active for the last 5 to 6 years in terms of sourcing material for the Ghana operation. And with the increase in global shipping costs, we've been looking more and more to actually starting to establish a footprint in South America to enable us to process some of the lower grade material. We are finding that we see opportunity in doing so. We, however, will invest into South America on a measured basis to make sure we don't overcapitalize. To start with, our capital will mainly be focused as we identify opportunities. We will grow our footprint there.
Okay, final minute, Werner.
Okay, that went quickly, Donald. Yes, I think, this is just the half-year numbers, and the operating profit number of around 4 million contributed to profit for the year from continuing operations for half year of 2.2 million, just to give you some perspective. We normally have quite a lot of cash on hand. At the end of December, it was 1.64 million. At the end of September this year, a month ago, we had about 3 million cash on hand, and our working capital investment is quite significantly. If you consider against our market cap of 20 million, we've got roughly 9 million invested into working capital. Then yes, for me, the exciting part of Goldplat is obviously it's cash generative. It's already producing, it's already creating cash. We are well established in the mining industry. We've got quite a big reach, and we've got opportunities to increase profits and future cash flow through strategic partnerships, through processing our tailings facility, and for diversifying into PGMs and potentially other elements as well.
Okay, Werner, thank you very much indeed for that. So why do you see yourselves as a mining services group rather than a gold recovery business? Why is mining services a more adequate description?
I mean, Donald, in the end, we're a bit of both. In the end, the mining industry in their plant processes byproducts like wood chips, mill liners, fine carbons. And we are providing a service to them in terms of removing that material and then recovering the gold, returning a percentage of that back to them and retaining part of it. So I think what's important to understand is that we are providing a service to the mining industry. We've been doing so for 20 years. So if mining industry is going to exist for the next 20 years, obviously there is need for a player like Goldplat to provide those services and extract value for the mining industry.
Okay. Mark Simpson has not just asked one question; he's actually asked multiple questions.
Yes.
But let me filter some of mine and some of Mark's. The company issued great Q1 results this morning, along with many others. I have to say, that's me saying that. But there was a large FX foreign exchange impact. Can you add a bit more colour to this? Now, I have my own question. Yes. So you give me your answer, then I'll take it.
Okay. Well, I think, Donald, if we look at Ghana cedi, it's depreciated over the quarter with more than 60% against the USD. In South Africa, the rand has depreciated more than 7% against the USD. Now, what is important to understand is that we're trying to, as far as possible, make sure that our cash inflows and our cash outflows sort of matches where possible. And sometimes that means we get paid on, let's say, day one. If at day one the CD is at 8, then the conversion is at 8. If the sale is only recognized 2 weeks later and is moved to 8.5, obviously my sales is stated higher, but the cash was received at the lower exchange rate, and that results in that foreign exchange loss being recognized in our books.
So does all the Ghanaian cash stay in Ghana? Does all the South African cash stay in the South African business?
Well, I mean, obviously, if we look at the reporting, all that money coming in and going out needs to be converted at the local reporting currency. That's creating the foreign exchange losses, and we can then move that cash around. Even if, I mean, it doesn't mean everything gets converted into CD or into rand, but it's being accounted in that way.
Okay. Okay. And, Mark Simpson, in a previous interview, you implied that share buybacks may be preferred to dividends due to the low share price. I remember that interview. Is this still the case? Because, as you say yourself, you are throwing off cash.
Yes. Well, I think, Donald, I mean, obviously, if we look at it, our cash balance has been stable at around £3 million over the recent past. I've indicated this morning that we do have some capital investments in the group that we needed to make. To date, for the 3 months, roughly £600,000. We're planning another 1.5 million as a minimum, I guess, for the next 12 to 18 months, just as normal repair and maintenance and requirements from the tailings in environmental perspective. We also do have some facilities we need to settle, specifically in South Africa. So I think for me, what is important is that it's not a question of whether we do share buybacks or whether we do dividends. We first need to make sure that we are comfortable to declare value out to shareholders, whether it's share buybacks, whether it's dividends. And if that is, at that point in time, we need to assess, well, what do we believe is going to be the best for shareholders. The share price might change. Obviously, that's a big factor on whether we are willing to buy back shares, and we think shareholders is going to get value from that. So that's really what you assess on the specific day. But in terms of returning value to shareholders, I think the nature of our business has indicated in the past, that's something we definitely will look at doing.
Okay, let's move on to DRD Gold. Now, is it possible just to ask you a broad brush question? Who are DRD Gold and what's your relationship with them? How does that all work? Because clearly they're quite important to you now, and presumably you are to them.
Yes, I think, obviously DRD Gold is quite a bigger gold processing company than what Goldplat is. They mainly focused on South Africa, and they process large volumes of previously mined tailings through their operations. Obviously, the shareholders can go and Google, they are listed and get all the detail. But yes, they've got the ability to process tailings material. They've got the capacity to process tailings material at high volumes, reducing the cost of processing that material. So from that perspective, obviously, they are key. They also cover large footprints of areas around where our plant in South Africa is situated, giving us the ability to also give them solutions in terms of processing material that is maybe not specifically earmarked for their circuits.
So you could have a collaborative arrangement with them, you think? Yes. A partnership type arrangement.
Exactly.
Okay, how fantastic. Where does the pipeline fit in? Forgive me for being naive. I can't quite see how the pipeline fits into a tailings recovery process.
Yeah, I think, Donald, obviously we're talking about close to 2 million tons by now, if not more. And that needs to be transferred from our area to where the plant is that we plan to process that material. There's two ways of doing it. Obviously, one is through trucking that material. 2 million tons is a lot of material to truck. And then there's certain decisions you need to make in terms of cost per ton, whether it makes sense to truck or to pump. Pump is definitely a cheaper option, firstly. And secondly, if you want to truck, you need to allow the dump to dry out.
Your tailings are in fairly liquid form, are they?
Well, yes. Obviously they contain a lot of moisture, and it will take some time to dry out before you can get to a point where you can truck that material. So from that point of view, having a pipeline in place makes a lot more sense.
Great. Okay. Okay. So back to Mark Simpson. Give us some more detail on the challenges you faced on the PGM recovery side, and when can you expect these to be fully resolved?
Yes, I think obviously we constructed a flotation plant. A flotation plant is quite a unique system. We also made use of unique flotation technology. And I think in the beginning it was just a question of trying to marry our current circuits with the flotation plant. It's not a big circuit. We tend to have smaller circuits than what you'll find in industry just because of the nature of the material we process. Because it changes so much, we want to batch process it. And once you start taking plants, trying to make them smaller, trying to utilize them on smaller quantities, it just becomes a bit more tricky to make sure you've got everything running optimally. I'm not going to go into all the detail in terms of all the variables that necessarily is at play, whether it's density, etc. But that was some of the challenges. But we're seeing a lot of improvement, which is encouraging.
Okay, back to the pipeline. Presumably there's a capex cost for the pipeline, and
yes.
who might be? Is that a sort of 50-50 split between you and DRD Gold, or
yes.
how might that work?
Well, I think, in the end, as indicated, the terms between us and DRD still needs to be finalized.
Indeed.
there will be a significant capital spend in terms of the pipeline. The positive is that on the other side, there is already infrastructure. We don't need to go and build a new plant from scratch. So that also has its benefit. So whether we need to contribute to that, whether we pay for everything, I think that is that's already been factored in terms of the whole project, but that's not a concern.
Okay, now news flow. Final question. It's 6 minutes past 8. Sadly, we are out of time. Last question. News flow. What can we expect from Goldplat in terms of news flow in the coming months? Always a good question to end on.
Yes, I mean, obviously, we still have our annual results that needs to come out. We're planning to get that out around beginning of December for the year end of 30 June. Then we're obviously we're starting the construction on our tailings facility, and we'll keep the market informed in terms of what that progress is. Obviously, from maybe everything won't go out to the market, but for me, what is going to be key and exciting is obviously trying to get more material out of West Africa, getting the PGM circuit to sync properly with the rest of the plant and starting to see the results from that. And also then looking at increasing our market share in South Africa, which we're working quite hard on. It's probably the stuff that for me is key for the next 6 months.
Werner Klingenberg, thank you so much for joining us from Johannesburg this evening. Thank you. That was absolutely fantastic.